Once upon a time I became an artist, and ever since I decided to try and make this profession my full-time job, my life has been plagued by fear. Whether it's fear of failure, fear of disappointment, or simply fear of the unknown, it was always there. Quite literally, the second I woke up, my thoughts revolved around fear, and it got to the point where I was looking forward to sleeping because that was the only time my brain finally shut off. But, as bad as it all might seem, there was something that kept me pushing forward over each and every obstacle, from finding myself as an artist to figuring out how exactly I want to make a living off of this. Something that would even go beyond love or passion for the craft. Something that would irrevocably force me to continue. And that something is actually another fear, my biggest of them all. The fear of never reaching my full potential. A fear so mighty that it kind of overshadows all the other ones. Now, I often mention in my videos how I don't just make these videos for you, the viewer, content-wise, to help you or entertain you, but I also make them for myself. Whatever video you see on this channel help me delve deeper into a certain topic and simply understand myself better by thoroughly thinking about it with one thought process after the other. So I thought, why don't we talk about something bigger, scarier, the killer of all dreams. Fear isn't a bad thing, and being afraid isn't either. In fact, it shows you care. Whatever it is that you're afraid of, it has all your attention, and you would not dare to underestimate the situation you're in. It gets bad though whenever the fear is so overwhelming that it stuns you longer than Morgana's Q.
I play way too much League of Legends.
Anyways, I have two stories for today, where in one I actually did succumb to my fear, and in the other I managed to conquer it. After I'll try to explain why I think I managed to push through that one time while the other just left me crippled, and how you could possibly look at your own fear and your own life from a similar perspective and avoid misery in the form of regret, for example. I believe it was around 2018 I became South German champion for the second time in judo.
Yes, I know, I talk a lot about it because sports, quite frankly, has taught me a lot.
So after winning the South, it was time to go for the whole thing, the German championship.
Now, unfortunately, I didn't go because, how should I put this, I was sick, which is a bunch of crap.
I was hella afraid, although it wasn't the reason what you all might guess, the fear of losing,
but more so the fear of traveling on the other side of Germany all alone, because my lifelong partner that I've trained all my life with actually got sick.
There are a bunch of side problems, such as that our club was very small and had basically no support for us. It was damn near non-existent, and so looking back on it, I believe I developed somewhat of a dependency on my partner. His father used to drive us everywhere all the time, since my dad wasn't there for the majority of my life and my mom was working all the time. And so suddenly I had to go all alone by train or something to what was probably the biggest championship of my life at that time. Hell nah! And so I lied, declined, and after the competition was over, I saw that my rival, which I was very much on par with,
won the competition. So my chances of winning were pretty high. You have no idea how much that sucked.
And this is just the beginning, because this wasn't the only time this happened. And all that simply because I couldn't do it alone.
I was too afraid.
Where everybody had their whole club, all the coaches everywhere, I had just a couple of friends here and there. To bring you a little bit closer, for instance, there was one time I was in a bigger competition when I was younger. You always have a coach on a seat that coaches you while you fight.
My chair was empty.
But yeah, every time I think about it, it obviously sounds stupid, you know? While I chickened out on my opponent, I got better, gained experience, etc. I wasted so much of my potential. But in the end, I always see it as a lesson, and thankfully I learned mine, which is why I also never have regret for anything. Now before we go a little bit more in depth, let's look at story number 2. I mentioned many times how I once blew up on TikTok, built a large following, and through that managed to sell my art for the very first time. So everything was fun and games until we actually get to the selling part. I just turned 18 and I had no idea about paperwork, taxes, international shipping, how to build a website, how to price my products, how to make my products in the first place, because after driving from one copy shop to the other and receiving what was possibly the worst prints I've ever seen in my life, I was trembling because I was about to open my shop in like a week or so and I had no product. So I went home and then I saw my $60 printer and I was like, there is no way. The guy at the copy shop used to
f***ing tank to print my artwork, and it turned out terrible. No way this little man can do it. Well, spoiler alert, he could. The quality wasn't the best, but arguably a lot better than what I received from the copy shops. And so now the next problem arrives, and I think whoever is self-employed or has their own business, their life basically consists of solving a bunch of problems. The paper I used for printing was typical printing paper, and there was no way I could give this to a customer. So while Juice WRLD was running in the back of my head, because that was pretty much the only way I could cope with all the anxiety I had, I went to a convenience store and bought like thicker paper for $2. And long story short, I charged an abnormal amount for it because I just had no idea how to price my product. I did no research whatsoever. I was so stupid. But after some time, I figured that out as well. The worst part was when one of my TikToks went so viral that it put so much traffic onto my shop that I think the highest visitors per day were like 21,000. I went from nobody to 21,000 potential customers. What the f? Now most of you know how the story ends. I got so overwhelmed with international shipping and I messed up some of the paperwork, and so I ended up closing that shop, having quite literally the worst mental breakdown ever after. Point is, despite being hella afraid, I didn't stop there, and I continued next year with better quality, etc. Now, you might also know how that story ends. I wasn't satisfied with my art, so I closed that shop as well, and basically decided to start from scratch doing digital art now. And yeah, so looking back on it now, the fear I had was abnormal. I quite literally thought I would go to prison for anything, which is obviously a bunch of hooey. Just to bring you closer how afraid I really was, there were 2 songs of Juice WRLD that I was listening to quite a lot at that time, which was Fighting Demons and Wishing Well, and I could listen to those 2 songs for over 2 years because they always reminded me of the time, of the chaotic time that was unfolding in front of me as I had my shop. And so the reason as to why I continued was because I just had so many other fears that were a lot greater than that. The fear of failure destroyed me so hard and pressured me to take whatever opportunity I got. And quite frankly, I'm so happy my past self didn't chicken out and actually took those opportunities. Because whatever pain I experienced in that process, the things I learned from those years simply outweigh that by a mile. But yeah, that was story number 2. So let's review them. Thinking about the story of judo, people most likely expected me to be afraid of losing than something petty as being alone. But when it came to loss, I always had a good mindset. I knew how to deal with that fear. Whenever I entered the judo mat, my thoughts did not revolve around, oh, who am I gonna disappoint if I fail, or what if I lose, etc, etc. Vice versa, it also didn't revolve around, I have to win. Winning is the only option, the only choice. In my head, it was calm, because it all revolved around giving my best, absolutely excel. And that is all that mattered. I was confident knowing that the best version of myself could beat anybody. I was afraid to lose, but because I shifted my focus on something else, that fear wasn't apparent as I was fighting, so it never really bothered me. So we all have our own fears, and the most important thing is that we acknowledge that they exist. You know, when you go out into the mat and say, I'm not afraid of anything or anybody, while you're internally actually scared like a it's gonna mess inside your head. So maybe that's not the best approach. So the first main takeaway from this is to shift your focus and rewire the way you think, and through that, possibly conquer your fear. Now, looking at the second story, here it was a little bit different.
Jimmy. Jimmy!
Huh? What the f are you looking at? Come on and break bread with me.
I ain't hungry. Plus I gotta finish my drawing today. I don't work well with a heavy stomach.
God damn. What happened to you?
What do you mean?
You were always the sulking little that needed a slipper to the head to pick up the pencil and start working. Good for you, man.
Well, our situation ain't really peachy, you know?
Right, but you gotta chill a little, man. Your hand is trembling.
By all means, how am I supposed to chill? We didn't make a diamond over 1.5 years. Our last video performed ass. Nobody cares about our drawings, neither original or fan art. And worst of all, we're still living with our mom.
And?
What do you mean, and?
I'm trying to be big, man.
Gentlemen, I see you're enjoying breakfast. Well, it will be my pleasure to join you, but as of right now, my smell of hard work and dedication might overwhelm you too. So, if you'll excuse me, I will see you in a bit. What you doing?
Doing what?
Being so disciplined and chill all the time.
To be fair, Big Booty Johnson's probably obsessing about himself in the mirror right now. Don't know if that counts as chill, but just like with you, it seems to get the job done.
Dude, I ain't never obsessing about myself in the mirror. I couldn't care less what people think about my body.
Well, maybe it ain't your body, but it's most definitely your status.
That's a lie.
Right, which is why you're worried you're still living with Mama. Seriously, Jimmy, what the
Well,
fuck?
maybe I am, okay? Got a problem with that.
No, but you will eventually.
How's that?
Look, being afraid is okay. You know, I was just like you once, worrying about all this bullshit until I eventually stopped lying to myself and told myself the truth. And only then I was able to ask myself, why do I even bother? What the do I care whether Peter the Balloon got his own steady job in his own apartment at 20 years of age? It most definitely won't help me get any better. I'll be just like you, suffering 24/7. Like,
Okay,
Jimmy.
man, chill. So what the am I supposed to do?
Well, that's for you to figure out. Use your brain, ask yourself some questions. I, for instance, look, I'm still afraid to fail. The whole world could tell me it's okay to fail, and I still my pants. I just shift my focus to something entirely different.
And what is that?
Potential. Look, today might be our last day on Earth, right? And the only thing I care about is whether I'm happy with who I became. To be quite frank, I am. You know, I'm scared shitless to go to those conventions next year, but instead of obsessing about sales and numbers, I just care about potential. You know, showing up is already a win in my book, and that's how I will be able to continue and why I will do so in the future. Give me some of the bread. Here, take some more.
Gentlemen,
Well, that was fast.
my apologies, but I have one question to ask. Do you think it got smaller?
Are you serious right now?
Told you.
Well, perhaps it's the towel.
Oh, sweet baby Jesus.
Anyways, basically it's okay to be afraid, and you can actually use other fears to push yourself, but just make sure you focus on the ones that don't hurt you. Don't obsess in general, and you'll be fine. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Truly thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.